Hey everyone, my name is Stephen Reardon, and today I'm presenting the consultation bid for Fins and Feathers Research Unit. Our proposal is for the Blue Power Renewables project near Eastport, Maine. This project would include both tidal turbines and wind turbines, so I focused on animals that use the water, the surface, and the air around the project site. I chose 5 marine mammals and 5 seabirds that may occur in or near the Eastport and Gulf of Maine area. The main goal of this proposal is to identify which species could be present, explain how to use the area, and decide which species may be most at risk if the project moves forward. I will also explain the research methods I used to study abundance, distribution, and behavior before and after construction. In simple terms, I want to know how many animals are using the area, where they are being seen, and what they are doing there, and whether that changes after the turbines are built. The first species is the gray seal. Gray seals are large seals found across the North Atlantic, including the Maine coast. Around Maine, they use rocky shorelines, islands, and nearby waters for resting and feeding. Gray seals are coastal predators, so they play a role in the local food web by feeding on fish and other marine mammals. They are different from whales and dolphins because they move between land and water. They may rest on rocks, but they also dive underwater to find food. For this project, I would be most concerned about disturbance from construction noise, extra boat traffic, and possible changes in prey location. Since gray seals dive to feed, tidal turbines could matter if the project area overlaps with their feeding habitat. I would monitor gray seals using boat-based surveys and counts near haul-out areas. If drone surveys were used, they would need to be done carefully so that the seals are not disturbed. The harbor porpoise is a small marine mammal that lives in cold coastal waters. It is common in the Gulf of Maine and could use waters near Eastport. This species is easy to overlook because it's not as showy as a dolphin. Harbor porpoises usually surface quickly, do not jump much, and are often seen alone or in small groups. Even though they're not flashy, they are important because they rely heavily on sound. They use echolocation to move around and find prey. That is why I would consider harbor porpoises one of the higher concern species for this project. Underwater noise from construction, vessels, or turbine operations could affect how they use the area. If they avoid the site after construction, that would be important to know. The best way to study them would be passive acoustic monitoring along with boat-based surveys. Acoustic recorders could help because porpoises can be present even when observers do not see them at the surface. The Atlantic white-sided dolphin is a social dolphin found in cooler waters of the North Atlantic. It can occur in the Gulf of Maine, especially in deeper or more offshore waters. This species is more social than the harbor porpoise. Atlantic white-sided dolphin often travel in groups, and they may use sound to communicate and stay together. Because of that, underwater noise is still a real concern. For this project, I would mainly be watching for noise disturbance, vessel traffic, and possible changes in feeding areas. These dolphins may not be inside the exact project site all the time, but if groups move through or feed nearby, they should be included in monitoring. I would study them with boat-based surveys, passive acoustic monitoring, and photo identification when possible. During surveys, researchers would record group size, location, and behavior, such as traveling, feeding, or socializing. That would help show whether they are only passing through or using the area more regularly. The minke whale is a smaller baleen whale found in cold and temperate waters. including the Gulf of Maine. Minke whales may use productive coastal waters to feed. Unlike dolphins and porpoises, minke whales do not have teeth. They are baleen whales, so they filter feed on small fish and plankton. They're usually not seen in large groups, and they can be hard to follow because they surface quickly and may not show much of their body. For this project, minke whales could be affected by underwater noise, vessel traffic, and changes in prey movement. I would not rank them as the highest risk species, but they're still protected marine mammals and should be a part of the study. To monitor minke whales, I would use boat-based surveys, photo identification if markings are clear enough, and passive acoustic monitoring when useful. I would also want surveys across different seasons because whales may use the area more when prey is available. The North Atlantic right whale is the species I would be most concerned about. It's already one of the most endangered large whales in the world. It's threatened by ship strikes, fishing gear, underwater noise, and changes in feeding habitat. Right whales are vulnerable because they're slow, spend time near the surface, and reproduce slowly. That last part matters a lot. If a species does not reproduce quickly, even a small number of deaths can have a serious effect on the population. Their feeding is also very specific. They depend on dense patches of tiny copepods, especially Calanus finmarchicus. If food shifts because of warming waters or other habitat changes, the whales may move into areas where protections are not as strong. For this project, I would be most concerned about vessel traffic, underwater noise, and any disturbance to feeding or travel areas. The research plan should include boat or aerial surveys, photo identification, passive acoustic monitoring, and coordination with NOAA sighting data. The razorbill is a seabird found in the North Atlantic. It has a black upper body, white underside, and a thick bill. Razorbills breed on rocky cliffs and islands, then spend much of the year out at sea. The important thing about razorbills is that they dive underwater to catch fish. They use their wings almost like flippers when they swim underwater. Because of that, they're not just surface birds. They actually use the water column, which makes them relevant to a tidal turbine project. For razorbills, I would be concerned about turbine placement, changes in prey, and disturbance in feeding areas. Wind turbines could matter too, but I'd be more focused on their diving behavior and whether they're feeding near the project site. I would study razorbills with boat-based seabird surveys. Researchers would count how many are present, where they are, and whether they are flying, resting, or diving. If a nearby colony is connected to the area, colony monitoring would also be useful. The black-legged kittiwake is a small gull-like seabird. It nests on cliffs and spends a lot of time offshore. It's found in the North Atlantic and the North Pacific. Kittiwakes are important because they connect to nesting areas with offshore feeding areas. They feed on small fish and other marine prey, often near the surface. Their movement can also tell researchers something about where prey is available. For this project, I would be most concerned about wind turbine collision risk and displacement from feeding areas. If kittiwakes are regularly flying through the same area where turbines would be placed, that would raise the risk. The research methods would be boat-based seabird surveys, flight path observations, and colony monitoring if nearby nesting sites are involved. I would want to record not only the number of flights, but also the flight height, direction, and feeding behavior. That would give a better idea of whether the project site is actually part of their normal route. The great cormorant. The great cormorant is a long dark seabird with a long neck and hooked bill. It's often seen near coastal waters, and it may stand with its wings spread after diving. Cormorants are strong diving birds. They swim underwater to catch fish, so they use both the surface and the underwater habitat. That makes them important for a project with tidal turbines. For great cormorants, the main concerns would be collision risk with tidal turbines, changes in fish movement, and disturbance from construction. If they dive regularly in the project area, then the risk is higher. If they mostly use nearby shoreline areas and not the actual turbine zone, the risk might be lower. I would study them with boat-based surveys, land-based counts, and behavior observations. The key would be recording where they are diving, not just where they're sitting. That would show whether the project area is truly important feeding habitat. The northern gannet is a large white seabird with black wingtips and a yellowish head. It's one of the easier seabirds to recognize because it plunge dives into the air, from the air into the water to catch fish. Gannets are important for this project because they use both air and the water surface. They can travel long distance from breeding colonies to feeding areas, so they might rely on the project area even if they're not nesting right next to it. For this species, I would be concerned about wind turbine collision risk, disturbance in feeding areas, and changes in fish distribution. Because they dive from the air, they're not connected to both the above water and underwater parts of the project. I would study northern gannets with boat-based surveys, feeding observations, and GPS tracking if possible. GPS tracking would be especially helpful because it would show whether birds repeatedly use the proposed site or only pass through once in a while. Leach's storm petrels. It's a small dark seabird with long angled wings and a white patch above the tail. It spends most of its life offshore and breeds on remote islands. This species is different from other seabirds because it's small, more offshore, and often active in low light conditions. Storm petrels can also be sensitive to artificial light, especially near breeding areas. That makes lighting from wind structures or construction sites more important concern. For an Eastport project, Leach's storm petrels could be affected by light pollution, offshore disturbance, and possible collision risk. They may be easy to miss if researchers only do daytime visual surveys, so the monitoring plan should account for that. For research, I would use boat-based surveys, nighttime monitoring where appropriate, and colony monitoring if nearby breeding islands are connected to the project area. I would also recommend reducing unnecessary nighttime lighting and using shielded lights when lighting is required.